Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving headfirst today into a really crucial part of modern communication, something many of us do every single day. Mastering English specifically for social media comments and replies. We've got our stack of sources here, mainly centered around a guide that's specifically designed to help you get better at exactly this kind of online chat. So our mission in this deep dive is to go beyond just the basics, to really pull out the most important insights and, practical strategies that turn simply typing in English online into truly connecting and thriving, really, in that digital space.
And this is so vital because, well, for so many people, platforms like Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, LinkedIn, these aren't just places to scroll. They're primary arenas for daily English practice. So mastering this kind of interaction isn't just about grammar, not at all. It's fundamental to building relationships, expressing who you actually are, and frankly, owning a key modern communication skill.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you've ever sort of hesitated before hitting comment, maybe,
Right.
or wondered, how to make your reply actually stand out, or how to get that tone just right, kind of blending friendly and professional. Well, this deep dive is really crafted to give you clear answers and practical tools straight from the source material we looked at.
Right. And what the source really drills down on is the impact of a well-crafted comment. It's not just noise online. It can genuinely spark a conversation, make someone smile, maybe even open doors to new connections. And, well, the flip side is true too. A poorly worded reply, that can lead to all sorts of misunderstandings. It's really about learning to navigate that subtle online etiquette, conveying tone, emotion, all without having your facial expressions or your voice tone to rely on.
Totally. So if you're ready to turn that hesitation into confident, engaging communication that, actually connects, this deep dive is definitely for you. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. So maybe start with a core insight from the source. Comments and replies. They're described as the lifeblood of online communities. They're what make these platforms feel alive, interactive, not just static pages.
That phrase lifeblood, it really sticks, doesn't it? Because a simple like is, well, it's passive. It acknowledges something. But a thoughtful comment, that shows you actually stopped. You engaged with the idea or the picture. You were present.
Exactly. When you take that moment to actually reply, you're signaling that you not only saw it, but you value the conversation happening around it. You're investing, basically.
Yeah. And here's what feels like a game changer, especially for English learners. This is probably the most accessible, lowest pressure, highest frequency English practice you can get.
Right.
You can try out words, experiment with sentences, see what lands, and you get immediate feedback. Likes, reactions, maybe replies back. It's authentic, relevant. It's living, breathing, social English.
And what's fascinating is how the source connects this directly to networking. A strategic, thoughtful comment isn't just practice. It's a subtle kind of digital branding. It can genuinely lead to DMs, new followers, maybe friendships, or even professional opportunities, especially on platforms like LinkedIn, obviously.
Wow. So you're saying every comment or reply isn't just a little bit of writing practice. It's actually a dual opportunity. Sharpen your English and build connections at the same time.
Precisely. And understanding that impact, that potential, it brings a whole different energy to learning English for social media. It stops being just about avoiding errors and starts being about actively building, bridges with your words.
Bridges build with words. Okay, I like that. So how do we make sure those bridges are sturdy and inviting?
Well, that brings us straight to the first major strategy the source really hammers home: adopting a relentlessly positive and constructive approach.
Right. In a space that can sometimes get pretty negative or critical, why is this the golden rule? What's the thinking?
Because it immediately makes you stand out. Choosing positivity, offering feedback constructively, it just fosters goodwill. It makes people want to engage with you. It's foundational for building that good online reputation we were just talking about.
And the source gives some really simple, actionable examples here. Just things like, that's amazing, or beautiful photo, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I really appreciate this insight. Keep up the great work.
You got this. Simple stuff. These aren't complex phrases, but they really pack a punch, don't they?
They absolutely do. And that word constructive is key when you are giving feedback. The source suggests thinking about it as adding to the conversation, respectfully. So instead of just blurting out, that's a bad idea, maybe phrasing like, I found this interesting. Have you considered X? Or even perhaps an alternative perspective could be Y. It shifts it away from judgment towards collaborative thinking.
That makes total sense. And it feels, I don't know, maybe safer for learners too. Focusing on positive or neutrally framed constructive comments probably uses more familiar words than trying to craft complex criticisms online.
Absolutely. It's often simpler language. Definitely. And the source is quite clear on this. Avoid unsolicited criticism. Avoid strong negative opinions in public comments unless you're explicitly asked. Because tone is just so easily lost online, isn't it? Without the voice, the face.
Right. So what if you really disagree with something? Does the source say, just stay quiet, ignore it?
It suggests thinking about whether a public comment is the right venue. Sometimes maybe a private message is better, or honestly, sometimes just scrolling past is the most strategic choice. Protect your energy. But if you do engage publicly when you disagree, the absolute rule is focus any critique on the idea, the content, never ever the person.
Got it. So the insight here is that positivity isn't just about being nice. It's actually a strategic choice. It builds your online presence, and it's often the most practical way to communicate effectively in English online.
Exactly right. Before you hit post, just ask yourself, is this adding value? Is it positive? Is it constructive? If you can tick those boxes, you're building a really strong foundation. Okay, so building on that positive base, how do you stop your comment from just vanishing in the feed? The source talks quite a bit about the power of engaging openers.
Right, making that first impression count. What's the key insight there? It's not just what you say, but how you start it.
Precisely. The idea is that the very first few words of your comment are disproportionately important for grabbing attention and signaling that you're genuinely engaged. They move you way beyond just a generic nice post, which, let's be honest, most people just scroll right past.
Okay, so how does the source suggest we, hook people with those first words?
Well, there are a few strategies. One big one is acknowledging something specific from the post. So instead of just great picture, maybe try, wow, I love how the light hits the trees in this photo. Or if it's an article, that's a really fascinating point you made about renewable energy. Specificity shows you paid attention.
Yeah, that you actually looked or read properly.
Exactly. Another powerful opener is asking a relevant question right away, like, what inspired you to try making that recipe? Or how on earth did you manage to get such a clear shot of the moon? It directly invites them to reply.
So it immediately shifted from just a comment to starting a conversation thread.
Precisely. The source also mentions just expressing genuine emotion or reaction right up front. Wow, this is incredible, or yes, I totally agree with this. Sometimes an exclamation mark or a fitting emoji can do the heavy lifting, especially for less formal posts. Like, for a funny video, just, this absolutely made my day. It signals your reaction instantly.
Okay, and for more serious stuff.
Yeah, for more serious content, an opener that shows you've actually considered it is key. Something like, that's a really interesting perspective, or, I hadn't thought about it quite that way before.
So the overall goal, then, is making your comment feel personal, feel inviting, right from the first word, making it stand out, making the original poster actually want to respond.
That's exactly it. And the advice is to practice this. Try different openers for different kinds of posts you see. Building that versatility is key to making your comments feel natural and, impactful.
Okay, so you've hooked them with a strong opener. What's the next step? How do you add some substance, keep them engaged?
Right. This is where the source talks about expanding your reply, moving beyond just that initial reaction to actually adding value and detail. The core idea here is that your comment can genuinely contribute something meaningful to the overall conversation, not just exist on its own.
So, adding value. It isn't just about writing more words. It's about saying something that actually builds on the original post or adds something new.
Precisely. The source gives examples like sharing a related personal experience. I hiked a trail just like that last month in your place. The views were amazing there too. Or maybe offering a relevant insight or a piece of information that complements what they said. That's interesting. I actually read an article recently about the same topic, and it mentioned X.
That makes the comment feel much richer, doesn't it? More helpful.
Yeah.
What about adding detail? How does the source suggest we do that effectively?
Well, mainly by using more descriptive vocabulary. Instead of just nice photo, we already talked about maybe the colors in that sunset photo are absolutely vibrant. Or for, say, a presentation someone shared, your presentation was incredibly insightful, especially the part about data visualization. Being specific shows you weren't just skimming.
And we mentioned questions as openers, but the source says you can also weave follow-up questions into your expanded reply to show deeper curiosity.
Yes, exactly. Like asking, what was the most challenging part of bringing this particular idea to life? Questions embedded within your comment encourage the other person to elaborate more. Though the source does add a practical tip. While you're adding detail, still aim for concise impact. Social media feeds move fast. You've got to balance meaning with brevity.
This feels like fantastic English practice, though. Learning to expand your thoughts, use a wider range of vocabulary, all within that real-world social media context.
It really is. And the ultimate aim, as the source puts it, is transforming your participation. Moving from just passive scrolling to active contribution, making your comments memorable, making them invite further interaction, creating that back and forth. Okay, now, to really sound natural and, comfortable in that social media space, the source stresses you need to get comfortable with the informal stuff. Hashtags, emojis, and acronyms.
Ah, yes, this is where the language gets a bit more fluid, right? It's definitely not standard formal English, but it feels pretty vital for sounding authentic online.
Exactly. Think of hashtags, not just as ways to categorize things, but also as shortcuts to add context or express a feeling concisely. Adding something like hashtag travel goals or hashtag wanderlust after commenting on a travel photo. It's not just for search. It tells a little story about how you feel about it, the insight. Use them strategically. Add personality. But maybe don't overdo it and look spammy.
Makes sense. And emojis, the little faces and symbols. How does the source frame their importance? They're everywhere.
They're seen as really critical nonverbal cues online. The insight here is that emojis basically compensate for the lack of tone of voice or body language. They can instantly clarify your emotion or your intent. The source gives a powerful example for empathy, writing, "Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that single sad face emoji." It adds a layer of genuine feeling that words alone might struggle with. But again, use them mindfully. They really need to fit the context and the platform.
Got it. And the acronyms, LOL, BTW, FYI, IMO, FOMO. They can feel like a secret code sometimes if you're not used to them.
Yeah, they're basically shortcuts for informality, for speed. The source suggests, starting with the really common ones, LOL for laughing out loud, BTW for, by the way, FYI for your information, IMO for, in my opinion. And if you see one you don't recognize, a quick online search usually solves it. The idea is that using a few common ones helps you sound more fluent in that digital space, but maybe avoid really obscure ones that might just confuse people.
Okay, so the deep dive takeaway here is that these informal bits, hashtags, emojis, acronyms, they aren't just decoration. They're actually functional tools. They add layers of meaning, tone, personality to your online English.
Precisely. Mastering them makes your communication feel more dynamic, more authentic, and definitely more efficient. It enables that concise expression that social media really thrives on.
Okay, moving from those specific tools to maybe a bigger picture.
Yeah.
A really significant insight from the source is about adapting your language based on who you're talking to and where you are online. This is all about tone and audience, right?
Yes, and what's fascinating here is just how drastically your language might need to shift. Tone, the attitude your words convey, is crucial. The source makes it really clear. Failing to adjust your tone for your audience or platform, it can completely undermine your message no matter how good your grammar is.
How does the source kind of illustrate this adaptation? Does it give examples?
Yeah, it contrasts different scenarios. So if you're commenting on a photo from a close friend or maybe a family member, a casual, friendly tone is totally expected. You'd use informal language, probably lots of emojis. Simple stuff like, looks amazing, or so happy from, feels completely natural there. But then switch contexts. Imagine commenting on a post from a big organization, or an expert in your field, or maybe even a potential employer on, say, LinkedIn. The language has to change completely. You need a more formal, respectful, thoughtful tone. That means using complete sentences, being mindful of grammar, using more professional vocabulary.
Right, yeah. You would absolutely not comment, OMG, that's totally lit, on a CEO's LinkedIn post about quarterly earnings. You'd go for something much more like, this is very insightful analysis. Thank you for sharing this perspective.
Yeah.
The difference is just night and day.
It really is. And the platform itself often sets a kind of baseline tone, doesn't it? X tends to be punchier, faster. LinkedIn is generally more considered professional. Instagram is very visual, often more casual, but still pretty varied. The source really encourages you to just observe. Pay attention to how fluent speakers navigate these shifts on different platforms.
And what about when you're in, public discussions or maybe disagreeing with someone? Does the source touch on tone there?
Yes, and it's critical. The advice is always maintain a neutral, respectful tone, even when you disagree. Always focus on the ideas being discussed. Never, ever let it slip into personal attacks. Your tone signals your respect for the conversation itself, even amidst disagreement.
Okay, so the key insight on tone and audience is really that effective social media English isn't one size fits all. Not at all. True fluency online means consciously choosing your word, your sentence structure, even your emoji use to perfectly match the context and the relationship you have with the person or group.
Exactly right. And a great way to practice this, the source suggests, is actually taking a simple message and trying to rewrite it. Write
Hmm.
it casually for a friend, then rewrite it formally for a professional contact. It really builds that adaptability muscle. Okay, another really powerful strategy the source highlights for boosting engagement. It's actually pretty simple, using questions.
Right, questions. Why are they so effective online? What's the core insight there?
Well, the insight is that a well-placed question instantly transforms your comment. It goes from being just a statement, maybe an endpoint, to an invitation for more dialogue. It clearly signals genuine interest and actively prompts a response, either from the original poster or even others reading the comments.
Yeah, it really pulls the other person or people into the conversation you're trying to start or continue.
Exactly. And the source breaks down different types of questions you can use effectively. You can ask for more information. That's fascinating. Could you tell us a bit more about the research behind this? Or what was your absolute favorite part of that experience?
Yeah.
You can also ask for an opinion, which really shows you value their perspective. Interesting point. What are your thoughts on how this might evolve? Or do you generally agree with this kind of approach? Or you can even use rhetorical questions, not really expecting an answer, but more to express a strong shared feeling like, isn't that just amazing? Or who else feels this way sometimes? These invite agreement, that shared sentiment.
And the source emphasizes using open-ended questions, doesn't it? Trying to avoid ones that can just be answered with a quick yes or no.
Precisely. Open-ended questions are designed to encourage more elaborate replies, which naturally leads to deeper, more interesting conversations. And always try to frame your questions positively, constructively, even if you're probing a potentially challenging topic. Keep that respectful tone.
This feels like a really key technique for building those connections we talked about. And maybe even establishing yourself as someone knowledgeable in a certain area just by prompting good discussion.
It absolutely is. And again, for English practice, questions are pure gold. They push you to actively use interrogative sentence structures, conversational vocabulary. The intent is clear. Using questions strategically is a powerful way to shift yourself from being just a passive reader online to being an active, dynamic contributor.
This has all been incredibly practical, but let's be real for a second.
Yeah.
Everyone makes mistakes online sometimes. It happens. How does the source help us handle those, well, awkward moments?
Right. And that brings us neatly to the final segment. Common mistakes, and crucially, how to recover from them gracefully. The core insight here is probably that mistakes will happen. It's inevitable. But knowing how to navigate them smoothly is key to maintaining your confidence and ensuring your online presence stays positive overall. So the source addresses several common pitfalls. Misinterpreting tone is a big one, especially with sarcasm or humor online. It's so easy to get wrong. If you realize you've misunderstood, the advice isn't just delete and hide. Acknowledge it politely. Something like, I see my mistake there. I completely misread the tone. Thanks for clarifying. Works wonders.
So, just honesty and politeness again. Seems to be a theme.
They are absolutely fundamental to recovering well. Typos and grammar errors happen constantly too. In really casual settings, minor ones are usually no big deal. People overlook them. But in more professional context, or if the error actually changes the meaning of what you said, the source suggests either editing the comment if you can, or just adding a quick follow-up like, oops, typo in my last comment, I meant to write corrected word, shows you're paying attention.
What about using slang or acronyms that maybe aren't clear to everyone?
Yeah, that's another one. If someone seems confused by something like IRL or a niche term, you could quickly explain it. Oh, IRL just means in real life. Or just make a mental note to avoid using it again if it wasn't widely understood in that group.
Okay, and I've definitely seen people accidentally reply to the wrong person or post in the completely wrong thread. What's the advice for that situation?
Delete it if you can, quickly. If deletion isn't possible, a simple, brief apology is best. So sorry, posted this to the wrong thread, or my apologies, that reply was meant for someone else. It just shows you're aware and respectful of the space. The source also warns against being overly promotional all the time. Focus on genuine engagement first. And, really importantly, getting drawn into pointless arguments. The powerful insight here is you don't have to win every online debate. You don't even have to engage. Often, the best recovery is just to disengage. Politely stop replying, or maybe state clearly, I think we'll have to agree to disagree on this one. Wishing you a good day. That can save you so much time and stress.
And that knee-jerk emotional reaction when something online just makes you angry or upset.
The source strongly advises taking a pause. Just don't reply immediately when you're feeling that wave of emotion. Step away, take a breath, maybe come back later if you still feel you need to respond, but only when you can do it with a calm, considered tone. No heat of the moment replies.
Got it. So really, just knowing that mistakes happen and having these simple strategies ready for recovery, that builds resilience, doesn't it? Builds confidence online. Native speakers mess up too, but they often just know these little recovery tactics almost intuitively.
Exactly. That awareness plus having a bit of a plan ensures that even when something goes slightly wrong, your comments can continue to serve your main goal, connecting positively with others.
Wow, okay. That really felt like we just built a comprehensive toolkit together. We've covered so much ground. We went from understanding why comments and replies are so powerful online to that foundational rule of being positive and constructive. Then crafting those engaging openers, adding real value and detail, getting comfortable with the informal language like hashtags and emojis.
Right, and adapting your tone and language for different audiences and platforms, which is huge. Using questions strategically to spark conversation. And finally, knowing how to handle those common mistakes gracefully when they inevitably happen.
Yeah, we covered being positive, making impactful first impressions, adding depth, navigating hashtags, emojis, acronyms, adapting tone, using questions, handling mistakes. That's a lot.
It is, but the source really ties it all together. Being positive, constructive, using those engaging openers, adding value detail, knowing the informal elements, adapting to audience, using questions, and handling slip-ups. That's the core package.
And what the source makes crystal clear throughout is that social media, it's a fantastic, genuinely low-pressure environment for you to practice all of this. Every single comment, every reply you write is a fresh opportunity to apply these strategies. And that active engagement, actually using these tools, it leads to your writing becoming more natural, more instinctive over time, just like a native speaker.
And that really leaves us with a powerful thought for you, the listener, to consider. Given all these strategies we've discussed, how might approaching your online interactions with more intention, consciously thinking about your opener, the value you're adding, your tone, the questions you ask, how might that change your entire experience of social media? Could it actually transform it? From maybe passive scrolling and sometimes hesitant typing into active participation and genuinely meaningful connection?
That's the challenge and definitely the opportunity here. Take these insights, these strategies we've unpacked, and try putting them into practice. On your favorite platform, maybe starting today, your voice matters online, and your ability to connect effectively in English using these approaches. That's a really powerful asset to have.
Thanks for listening, and if you found the video helpful, please hit the like button, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you never miss an episode, and share it with others who might benefit. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. So your feedback is really important to us. And if you want to continue learning right now, here in this playlist, you'll find helpful videos for English listening practice. You might want to watch it next. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.